So I've just started the recording. Good. So we are ready to start, right?
Yes.
Good. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Can you all hear me, right? Good. Welcome to this afternoon's webinar, Data Publishing with Dataverse. My name is Minglu Wang. I'm the current convener for ACRL Numeric and the Geospatial Data Services Interest Group. Together with me today is also Susanna Conrad. She is a recorder for the ACRL Digital Curation Interest Group. Both our interest groups today are hosting this afternoon's webinar. We are very happy to have Mercy Closas, who is the Director of Data Science, the Institute for Quantitative Social Science, IQSS at Harvard University. She has been leading the development of Dataverse since 2006. We'll have her to introduce to us what she has been learning about publishing data. After her talk, we will have questions and answers, but feel free to post your questions to the chat box. Susanna and I will be monitoring the chat box to gather questions to be presented to Mercy to be answered after her presentation. Without further delay, let's welcome Mercy Closas to start her presentation. Mercy, you can start.
Thank you, Mingo. Thanks a lot for the introduction. I hope everybody can hear me well. I'll go ahead with it if that's the case. So yes, I'll be talking today about data publishing with Dataverse. I'll start with a short introduction to our team and projects that relate to Dataverse, but they complement Dataverse in some way. And they are all implemented and supported by our team, the data science team at IQSS. So there is a new website for our team, datascience.iq. Harvard EDU is still a bit under development, but it's just finishing it this week. Next week, you're free to you're welcome to visit it and give us feedback. The projects that are described there, in addition to Dataverse, well, I'll introduce them shortly, but Zelig, Dataverse, TwoRavens, DataTags, Conciliance, and RBuild. But first, let me tell you what the team that we're implementing these tools constitutes of. So we have a group of researchers, and we combine that with a group of software engineers and another group of information scientists. Altogether, it's a perfect combination of complementation of all the skills that are needed for building data science applications and tools. The research group are bringing statistical innovations to our tools. We have the software engineering together with QA, testing and usability, technical testing and usability testing are building the skills needed to build those tools. And the data curation and stewardship team are helping us to understand how data needs to be managed, curated, archived, etc. This is a team of 20 people, and as I described, it includes the software development, data curation, archiving, statistical and analytics team, and then with the very important, critical support of usability, user interface, user experience expertise, and QA and technical support. So the projects that we're working on are all to some extent connected, and they relate to data publishing and data analysis. The two main ones, Zelig and Dataverse Network, we've been working on them for about 10 years now, almost 10 years. Zelig is a framework that enables analysts to be able to access a large set of statistical models that are contributed to R, to the statistical packages in R, that is an open source statistical programming language. But Zelic offers this common interface so that you can easily use different statistical models that are considered by very different researchers, and they are often described or have different documentation or have a different interface, but Zelic unifies them with this common interface. Dataverse, as maybe many of you are familiar with, is a data publishing framework, a web application that can be installed in an organization or institution to set up or to build a data repository. I will talk mostly about Dataverse and in particular how we host the Dataverse at Harvard University that is open to all researchers and to all disciplines worldwide. The other two projects that we're working on now, and this summer we'll have the first releases, also integrate with Dataverse. TwoRavens is a new web application or web tool that allows for Dataverse to interface with Zelic with a large number of statistical models. But it provides a web interface in a way to Zelic, but it adds also additional functionality to view, for a tabular data set, view the summary statistics, explore the data, do subsets, be able to run analysis, and all in a very interactive user interface. We used to have a different user interface for that in Dataverse, but this summer this will be a completely new interface that will bring not only this interactive UI, but also more intelligence in the selection of a statistical model based on the data that is published in Dataverse. Then we have DataTags, and we're gonna release a beta this summer, and it's not gonna be yet production ready, but we'll be opening it for testing and and piloting it to get feedback and build a final production ready release in the fall. So DataTags is a framework that will facilitate the sharing data sets that contain sensitive information. And it does that by going through an automated interview for the data with the data owner to be able to understand what the data set contains, and based on the input from legal regulations from the rules from either HIPAA, FERPA, or other regulations that exist and apply to sensitive data, it assigns a tag to the data set. So that tag comes with requirements of how that data set needs to be handled, stored, and how it can be accessed. And it adds the data use agreements that go with that data set. So it helps to maximize sharing those data sets to still make them public and be able to access some of the information, but have a rigorous way to then access the full data when it contains sensitive information. So that DataTags will integrate with Dataverse, and that will happen. We plan it to be for the fall. And then we're working on another project that don't relate at this point to Dataverse, but I just mention it very quickly here. One is Consilience on text analysis, and the other one is our bill helping to develop our methods or our packages and be able to push them to CRAN, which is the repository for our packages. So you can see in this slide that all these projects integrate one way or another, and in a way they have Dataverse as a center for publishing the data. That is either sensitive data or quantitative data sets or structured text or other types of data, and then be able to also have tools like TwoRavens, for example, to allow exploring and reanalyzing that data and helping to use that data and with the publishing data component in the center, you're able then to cite the data from the published results of your research, from the analysis of your research, and point to not only the data, but the analysis that has been done to get the results. It is one of the things that our team is interested in and focus on is validation and reuse and reproducibility of research. So Dataverse again is at the center of that, providing a repository to share data sets, make them more reusable, discoverable by others, and be able to extend to the research that others have done, and further validating that research by having not only the published results, but the data and in some cases the code and any other information or materials that go with the data. So let's start focusing more on Dataverse, in particular what we do with the hardware, the installation we have here at Harvard. Just point out first that there are other installations in the world. The University of North Carolina has an installation of the Odom Archive for social science. There are, for example, an installation of a Dataverse network in the Netherlands that supports 9 universities. There is another installation in Ontario for Ontario University. I think it supports several, maybe 18 universities, and another one now in the University of Alberta, another one in China for Fudan University, and a few others. I don't remember all of them now, but just to give you an idea that the software can be installed and can be used to build your institutional repository if you choose to. But at the same time, we provide as a service repository at Harvard that is open to all researchers. So the researcher wants to share that data in an open way. When I say open, I don't mean necessarily that all the data files need to be completely public, but it does mean that the metadata of that data set is public, can be discovered by others, and then the data owners chooses if the file can be public or needs to be restricted. And of course, we encourage open data. So whenever there are no legal requirements or data user agreement requirements to restrict the data, we encourage that data to be open. It currently holds 53,000 data sets, a little bit more, and more than 700,000 files. So each data set can contain as many files as needed. So it can contain maybe just one data file or multiple files. And you can go to the data.harvard.edu and search for data and deposit a data set there. We're making big changes with the user interface for a release that is coming this summer. We've been working very closely with users, with researchers, and getting feedback across multiple disciplines. So this together with changes in the technology, since we started building Dataverse, technology has been, some of the backend technology has been improved, and we wanted to upgrade that. So we've rewritten Dataverse to have this new UI and new backend technology. The new I will show you later that there is a link for the beta release that can be tested now, and we get we are welcome very much feedback from all of you. It has a whole new search based on Solr with faceted search, much richer than the one we had in the previous in the Dataverse 3 point wall. We have also a new data file in JS that, although we accept any data files, but for some data files like Excel, CSV format, or R data file, or data, or SPSS, we extract automatically metadata from that file, and we are able then to provide the data analysis and summary statistics of the tabular file, and that's what I will show with TwoRavens. And then we also have enhanced the metadata, the support for metadata for a data set. So a data set, I'll show us, in addition to the standard data citation metadata, it can contain a metadata block depending on the domain, the data domain that applies to your data set. So we go to the next slide. You can see this is still in beta, so that UI is not finalized, but you can see how the TwoRavens application that integrates with Dataverse, how it will work. You have your variables or columns in your tabular data set are on the left, and then you have a panel where you can define the dependencies of your variable, and then on the right you have the set of models. And here this is just a subset, but there will be a lot more where you can choose the model, the statistical model you want to run, and run an estimate and see the linear regression or any model that would apply for that data set, and get the results right in the screen. You can also build a subset or look at descriptive statistics of the data set. It's a way to explore the data, understand it, run analysis, and even for somebody that would not know necessarily what are all the statistical models that could apply to your data, just by understanding the data dependencies, the system will help you to choose the right model. So all these, they was mentioning all this new release, Dataverse 4.0, has been created by a whole very iterative process that includes users, and users are at the center of the design of a lot of the features the new features that we have in Dataverse 4.0. So from the analysis point to the design of new features to the implementation to the deployment, there is usability testing in every step. So we'll now focus more on the data publishing workflows. This is mostly based on 4.0. That's why one of the reasons I wanted to introduce 4.0. So although a lot of data is already exists now in the current version of Dataverse, but you'll see that there are new extensions that are part of the new release. So when I talk about data publishing, what I'm referring to are mainly three components that I would consider define publishing a data set. The first one is that you need a trusted data repository that will guarantee long-term access to the data. So in the same way that publishers in the traditional wall of publishing literature serve as a place to guarantee the long-term access of those, the access of those publications, right? And the data repository plays also an essential role in data publishing, and sometimes this data repository might be a publisher, part of a publisher, or sometimes might be hosted in a university like this in the Harvard Dataverse, and sometimes it could be an independent archive, but it needs to play a role in providing this long-term access, long-term preservation guarantees if you're going to make your data accessible through that repository. The other big component of data publishing is providing a formal data citation. So one of the important things about when you also in traditional publishing literature, you need to have a way to reference that work. And referencing a data set, it means to provide a data citation that will include something like a DOI. There might be other options that are not a DOI, but basically a persistent URL that will always be able to resolve into a page where you will have at least information about the data set and information about how to access that data set if the data set is not available right there. And then in addition, you need sufficient information to understand that data set. So it is one of the other differences from publishing a paper or the result that is mostly all self-contained, besides our references to other papers. But in the case when you publish data, the data values by themselves might not be meaningful unless you have metadata and you have documentation that explains what that data are about. And that's why the Dataverse supports within a data set support these while holding not only the data files, but other files that could be code, documentation, and in addition, metadata that will be discoverable, will be able to search and be able to find information about that data set. For just let me point out that for data citation, I've been quite involved in the last year or so on these data citation principles that can be found in the 411 website. Those are 8 principles that are basically high-level guidelines on what data repositories and publishers should do about data citation. And that includes attribution, providing persistent identifier, like I was saying, giving importance to data in the reference list, as the same way that you have references to books and other articles, you should have reference to data if the claims you are making in your paper include abuse data. So all those things are described in those principles. They are now principles are finalized and open for endorsement. So I encourage all of you to go on that website and review it and give us feedback, and if you are so inclined, endorse the principles. If we go deep into what are the steps of data publishing with Dataverse, we see that, well, the way we're supporting mostly 4.0, but there is already some of that in the current version of Dataverse, is that we have a versioning structure that allows to first upload a data set, and before it's published, is in a review state. So that's actually very helpful when journals are encouraging authors to deposit a data set associated with the article. And there is some time where that data set can be reviewed, and at the time that the article is published, then the data set can be published. But until it's published, before it's published, it's not accessible, it's not discoverable by the rest of the world. Once the data set is published, then that basically cannot be undone unless for some reason you need to delete it, or what we call in that case the exception. If for some legal reason the data set needs to be removed from the repository. But at that point, well, it's a rigorous and serious step where the data set has a final citation, anybody can reference it, and want to have at least the landing page always working after that, so that there is always a place that reference, that citation will go to. This citation includes the authors of the data creators or producers, a title, the year of publication, a DOI, the name of the repository, as the publisher, and a numerical fingerprint if it's a quantitative tabular data set that has that numerical fingerprint will give it's a checksum to the values of the data, independent of the format of the data file. So if you upload a data file in a CSV format or in Excel format, and the values are the same, it should give you the same UNF. And then you have a version. Start with version 1, obviously, and then after that, though, even though it's published, we understand the data are in a way different also from traditional publications, the sense that they're all usually updated and reviewed, and new versions of the data set can be added in the future. So that's why we have the support for versioning, and the changes or the new versions can be at 2 levels. One is a minor new version that might only have a change in the metadata, small change in the description of the data set. And then that would be considered a minor version, and it would not reflect in the data citation. So the data citation would continue being the same. Or at some point, you might have a whole new data file for your data set, and in that case, then this would become a whole new version, major version. So we will go to version 2, and this would be reflected into the data citation. And this is important because if you're referencing a data set from an article, and that article has some claims that say you use that data to, and analyze it that way, and come to these results, and then there is a new version of a data set. You want that the reference to the version 1 still exists, is still accessible, and it can be validated against that claim. But you want to try, so you have, even though there is a new data set version, you want to be able to maintain that version 1, and that's why the citation is different. So then, in addition to the details of the data publishing workflow, we provide 3 different ways or options how the data publishing in Dataverse can be integrated with journals. So option 1 is quite simple. You could there are some journals or publishers that they recommend Dataverse as one of the data repositories that authors can upload data. So in that case, the researcher, the data distributor owner will upload that data set into Dataverse, and they will provide the citation that Dataverse generates to the journal, and the journal uses that citation. And that there is no direct integration. For option B, what some journals choose to do is to have a Dataverse within the Harvard Dataverse system that will be specific for their journal. So it's branded as their journal, and it is open for authors to be able to deposit the data directly there in that journal. In that case, the journal editors or administrators will be able to review that data set before they choose to publish it, and usually they will publish it at the same time that the article is published. And this will also have, and very important, it will have the journal article now will have a citation to the data, and the data can have a citation to the journal article. With the option C is a case that we've been working with the Open Journal system to provide this solution, and it's a seamless integration of the 2 systems. So with the tightest integration of the 3 options. As you can see in this slide, if you have we started that project about a couple years ago, and what we've done is connect the Open Journal system with the Dataverse software. And in particular, you could have an OJS, Open Journal System. OJS stands for Open Journal System. So you can have an OJS journal, open access journal, and have it connected to Dataverse, well, a journal Dataverse, or Dataverse that corresponds to that journal. And in that case, the workflow is different because the authors are going to, when they are submitting the article in the journal, they have an option to submit the data from that same article publishing system, and the data goes directly to Dataverse through an API, but the author is not doesn't need to do anything else. It's part of the same workflow as submitting the article. So we, as I said, we started that about almost 2 years ago. We piloted that with 50 journals. There are a number of journals that are now using it, start using it in production, and OJS software now comes with a plugin to be able to set up how you're gonna deposit the data to a Dataverse. And to get into a little bit more technical details about how this integration happens is, well, we have we're using an API that connects the client side, which is the OJS, with the repository side, which is in this case the Dataverse. And from the client side, you send an XML file with some metadata and a zip file with the data files associated with that data set. And then the repository sends back the deposit is received. And at the same time, when it sends that back, it sends back the citation of the generated in the Dataverse to the data, so that the journal have, can associate that data citation with the article in the journal system. A few more details about the API is based on SOAR, so specifically in SOAR 2 specifications. Well, we chose that because it's a standard that is known and broadly, at least broadly used. It's based on the Atom Publishing Protocol, which is broadly used, and it has also already exists client libraries, so that the client side, in this case, well, the OJS, for example, use the PHP client library that was already available. There are other systems that have, since we started this project, that have been using that API, and they use some other libraries like the Python library or build a custom library to be able to integrate with Dataverse and deposit data directly from the system to a Dataverse instance. And a little bit more details about the SOAR API. What we implemented for these deposit API is a little bit different than the specifications. For example, we didn't implement the part about the SOAR download API because Dataverse has a data API that already offers those download options. And we're extending that API in Dataverse 4.0. And then we added a small changes that would allow us to be able to pass the information we needed to pass from one system to another. For example, the information about the reference to the article, so that into the Dataverse, so the data set can contain the citation to the article, and the article can contain the citation to the data set. That was one of the most important things about that integration, that in a seamless way, we would establish that link, this persistent link between the article and the data, and that would exist then will stay permanently, basically after these preferences have been established. In terms of support for metadata standards, data set in Dataverse has some of the metadata that are required are part of the citation metadata. Just minimal metadata that you need to generate the data citation and to provide enough information, like for example a description, some keywords, some the list of authors, or data contributed, and such an information such to be able to find that data set, be able to cite it, and have some level of understanding of what the data set has. But then we extended that minimal metadata on citation or descriptive metadata to some new metadata blocks that are different based on the domain on the data set. So all data sets will have always the citation metadata, but data sets that are fit into social science and humanities, they use a metadata block that corresponds to fields that are more commonly used for data in that domain. And those metadata blocks map to the DDI in that case, in the document descriptive initiative, right? Data document initiative. And then for the case of astronomy, the metadata fields for that domain are different, and they map to the virtual observatory schema. For the biomedical sciences, we work with a large set of users that have, that use commonly, they work with biomedical data sets, and we've based the metadata on the ISA-TAG schema. Been using controlled vocabularies and map to some of the ontologies defined in biomedical sciences. I'll show a little bit more examples of that metadata. So this is the metadata in Dataverse 4.0. This is the citation metadata, and as I said, it's compliant. These are the minimal fields that are needed to define a data set, and they're going to be used mostly to generate that data citation. They are compliant to the data site schema, to Dublin Core, and to part of the DDI. The next set of metadata fields are for social science and humanities. They have added information as the time period, geographical information, etc. This is just a subset, and they are compliant with DDI. Then here's the astronomy and astrophysics metadata, and these are the ones compliant with the virtual observatory schema. Some of those metadata fields can be extracted from a FIPS file, which a FIPS file is commonly used in astronomy, and it might contain images and tables. So the information or metadata is in the head of FIPS file is extracted automatically by Dataverse when you deposit the file, and it fills in the metadata, so facilitating the curation of that data set, and then the data owner can extend that metadata after the initial fields have been filled in. And here's an example of some of the fields that are part of the biomedical metadata block. Those are based on the ISA-TAG schema with some ontologies or controlled vocabularies that are based on OV, several different ontologies that, depending on the field, use a different ontology that is commonly used in biomedicine. The ontologies might be updated over time. We have a plan. This is not yet implemented, but it will have a plan of having an external editor, basically an external way of updating an ontology or controlled vocabulary and be able to feed that into the Dataverse metadata database so that those ontologies can get the new versions that are defined by the community, the research community. So then finishing up in the presentation, and then we'll go for questions. I'll present some of the future projects, or well, projects actually that we're working on, some of them, but will be integrated with Dataverse in the next month or so, or next year. The first one is the mentioned in the first part of the presentation that we're working on DataTags and secure Dataverse to facilitate the sharing or maximize the sharing of sensitive data. We're also integrating with several systems. This is in collaboration with different groups, for example, with the Open Science or Framework or OSF. We're integrating the two systems, OSF and Dataverse. So a researcher is using OSF to manage all the data materials from a scientific project. They can deposit the data directly to Dataverse. We're also working with some of the folks in DataApp to integrate DataApp, have one of the options of a repository to archive the data via Dataverse. We're integrating with World Map, which is developed here also at Harvard with the Center for Geographical Analysis, and it's well, if you don't know about it already, it's quite widely used to create maps and share maps and with data across researchers that are working with geospatial data sets. And we're very actively working on integrating the two systems, Dataverse and World Map, so that if you upload, for example, a shape file into Dataverse, we will be able to visualize it in World Map automatically. We're also integrating with ORCID, DataBridge, and several other collaborations that we're starting now. And in addition, one of our interests in the next years or more, in the future, is to extend Dataverse to larger and larger data sets. So as of now, a data set can contain as many files as you want, so it doesn't really have a maximum size, but every file has a maximum size of 2 to 4 gigabytes. Some data sets have hundreds of files, some data sets have only one file. We would like to be able to support other data storages behind Dataverse that could eventually handle terabytes to terabytes data sets, be able to access them through fast queries and visualization and exploration tools that would allow to access some subsets of that data. But that's in the future. All the other options, all the other features are things we're working on. The expanding to larger cell data sets is something we're just planning now. So let me finish with a couple of slides on DataTags. This has been already from the beginning when we started to work on that project. This has been very popular, and many people are waiting to test it and be able to use that. People here in the Harvard Medical School and the School of Public Health, but also people outside Harvard. This work is done in a collaboration, well, it's funded by NSF and it's done in collaboration with the Data Privacy Lab and, well, here at USS, but other groups that, sorry, I'm not listed all here, but there is the the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences with Salil Vadan as the PI of that project of a project on sharing, well, on privacy tools basically for sharing data, sensitive data. But this specific project, DataTags, is we're working with Latanya Sweeney, myself, and some other people in the data science team. And it has a way of tagging your data set and then integrating, once the data set is tagged, it has enough information for the repository to know how to transfer that data set, how to storage it, how it can be accessed, and what are the data use agreements that are associated with that. So it goes through an interview that could start with something like that your data include personal information. You answer yes, it continues to the next question, and it maps to regulations based on people, regulations based on FERPA for now, and so that it defines what are the requirements of how to handle that data set, and at the end you get a tag that will tell you, will be an machine actionable tag, basically, that will allow the repository to handle that data properly. So this is all for the presentation. I'll invite you to try Dataverse 4.0 beta just for test data only now, but you can go ahead and try it and give us feedback. We have a team, user experience usability team, that will be happy to get your feedback and integrate it with the new iterations of Dataverse. I also invite you to see the data science new site that is still is not completed, but there is enough information to so you can learn about the projects that we're working on. And I'll be very happy to answer questions. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mercy. And yeah, now our audience, you can type in your questions. Susanna, we already have some questions.
Yeah, we have the first question is from Amber about, and I think this was in regard to the number of data sets in Dataverse and how much storage space to those 53,000 data sets with 730,000 file, or how much space do they take up?
Sorry, I can't hear you very well. How much data? Could you repeat the question? I couldn't hear the last part.
Sorry, my microphone was muted. How much storage space do the 53K data sets with 735K files take up?
Okay. Yeah, a lot of those data sets, since they are not videos or very high resolution images, are mostly data files with quantitative tabular data files. They don't occupy a lot of space. They're about a couple terabytes maybe now.
Okay, and a second question from Amber, and I believe this was related when you were talking about the different versions that you created for data sets and published data set versions. She was asking, are the different versions linked?
I'm sorry that I'm having a little hard time hearing you. So the last part is that how the publishing, the different versions differ, or how? Can you repeat it?
Certainly. She was talking, I guess the slide you were referencing was specifically walking through the data sets, going through different versions of published data sets. And she was asking if the different versions were linked.
Let me go back to that slide. I mean, here?
Yes. So if the different versions there are linked.
So, yeah, I'm sorry that I lose the last words all the time. It just
Oh,
I'm not
sorry.
sure.
So are the different versions linked?
Linked, yes, they are part of the same data set. So when you go to the same DOI, they have the same DOI, so it goes to the same landing page, and that page lists all the versions for a data set. So yes, they're linked.
Yeah, I think we have another question from Carol Spector. The question is, can libraries set up universities Dataverse within the Harvard Dataverse? In other words, to have a branded data collection?
Yes, that is possible. Some libraries, for example, MIT has done that. And we're considering whether to change the name Harvard Dataverse. We just call it dataverse.org. So we're trying to get the proper, well, the right trademark or the proper branding, because even though it's hosted here at Harvard, there are other universities that are using as their data archive. But I mean, with the idea that it's a data archive to make data, as much of the data as possible, open, right? But I mean, one of them, what we encourage basically is that make that data shareable and open, and when it needs to be restricted, at least the metadata still is open.
I received another question from Victoria Mitchell. Specifically, is there any incentive for social science data depositors to use all of the applicable EDI metadata fields available? And then also, she asks, because there are many data sets in Dataverse with only minimal metadata or that don't use fields that would be helpful, such as geography and time period, this really limits the ability to search Dataverse.
Yes, that is a very good question, and it's something that sometimes we struggle. How much do we want to require the data depositors to provide? But at the same time, we want a low bar in a way, because we want to encourage them to share the data and not add a lot of barriers, right? So when we can, I mean, I don't have a number that is an important number to have. I realize, but I do not have a number that says what a percentage of data sets have only the minimal information. I do know that our data curation team, led by Sonia Verbos, and so encourages a lot of the data depositors to provide more information than just the required fields. So I think we have 4 or 5, well, at least in 4.0, we're saying about 4 or 5 required fields in addition to title and authors and obviously the identifier, but also a description and some subject of some keyword that will describe or topic classification will describe the discipline or the scientific subject that the data set is about. But other than that, the other ones are not required, which means that a lot of times people want to do the minimum amount of work. In terms of building incentives to, well, we're trying to have 2 approaches. So one of them is that as much as we can, we extract information automatically. That's possible for some type of data files, like I was describing for speech. There might be some information about how where was the observation done, with what instrument, right? In what observatory, what kind of wavelength cover those observations cover, or other things like that. It could be extracted from the header information and can be embedded or added into the metadata automatically. We do something similar with some tabular data sets that have rich metadata, like in SPSS, data, or R. So that's one approach, the automatic abstraction of metadata and allowing us to fill in metadata fields as much as possible. The other approach we've considered, and we haven't done yet, is to provide a way to, as an incentive, a way to rate in a way a data set based on how much metadata is provided or how much additional information is provided. So something that would say, well, only this percentage of fields have been filled in, and is a constant reminder, right, that more can be done, and maybe encourage or help others encourage to improve the metadata of the data set. And if you have any other ideas, I would love to hear them. I think there is a balance between encouraging people to do that, to just deposit and give the data, which is sometimes hard by itself because they have to figure out where the data files are. Do I have some documentation of that? And so there is a balance between just encouraging them to do it and then asking them too much to be self-curated. Let me point out also that our team sometimes has helped some specific groups if they want some additional. I mean, it's not something we can scale a lot, but in a one-to-one basis when possible, the curation team helps research groups to provide additional metadata.
So another question from Angus White. Can you describe how preservation is supported, e.g. how do you use UNFs for integrity checks and any support for file format normalization and validation?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So the UNF, UNF provide the ability to have this integrity checked because you can be able to get if you download the data set, you can rerun again a UNF and see that it's the same data. It has the same data UNF that it was calculated at the time of deposit. Or if you have converted to another format, you can do that. I mean, in addition to that, we don't have at this point additional services to go and validate your data set, but I mean, I don't know if that answers the question, but basically, that's why in the cases, I mean, we in the cases that we can calculate a UNF, we calculate an UNF. In the other cases, we have an MD5 calculator, like if it's in an image or another data file that we cannot calculate a UNF. So this can only, since this appears in the metadata of that data set, you can always check when you download that file that it's the same file. So I guess that's how you would validate it. Yes.
So we have another question, well, comment from B. Scott Brandt, great presentation. And the question, does Dataverse encourage deposit of high-res images where journals have a limit on the amount of supplemental files that can be deposited? I.e., does Dataverse see this as a role it can fill?
Yeah. We don't, I mean, it's not that we encourage another culture, but we do allow deposit of high resolution images. I mean, the main purpose, again, is Dataverse is to share research data, publish research data, right? So if a high resolution image is needed to as part of the data of a research project, then we definitely would encourage that. There is no limit as of now to the number of files you can deposit. I mean, in a way, for the journals that we've been working with OJS, they might still have some supplemental files that they don't consider the data per se that it's stored in the journal, but all the data goes into Dataverse. I know that sometimes is gray to what we consider data. So, but if anything that in that case that the author and the journal together consider that needed to understand the analysis that have been done or the research claims that are in the paper, all the data either in quantitative format or as an image or as text that supports that, we would consider data.
I see we have another question from the audience. In addition to reuse and replication, do Dataverse data get used for any pedagogical purpose? If so, could you talk a bit about what in the inject curation workflow might be different from those other deposits? Are there additional steps, different metadata access levels for data for pedagogical purpose?
Right. That's a very good question. We're actually very interested in pedagogical, well, using Dataverse for pedagogical purposes. There are two ways that we've been, well, one way that is already used now, and another that we proposed is a grant proposal, and we would like to expand in that direction. So yes, you could use it in a way, for example, for some faculty here in another university are using a Dataverse to say, here you have some data sets that we would like you to use in your course to replicate, in this course to replicate previous studies, right? Previous work is one way of first, as part of the course, validating these previous results, but also at the same time for the students to understand what is the whole research process. And they use the Dataverse as the place, the storage or the archive to access those data sets, real data sets, basically, that for coursework. Is, for example, Gary King here, director of our institute, has a class that is been very well known for these replication efforts, and all the students have to do a replication study, and the data sets are in a Dataverse. We also have proposed the idea of having a Dataverse for collecting data sets that could be used for teaching a statistical method or general statistics into different disciplines in biology, in physics, in political science, in psychology, and that pedagogical Dataverse would contain, again, real data sets with some information about how the research has been done. We're considering integration with IPython notebook as a way to describe or have a story, basically, of the workflow of all the research steps, on the analysis steps that apply to that data, and use it for this pedagogical purpose. I think there is not really different workflow as of now to use it that way. You can just have a Dataverse and call it and make it your pedagogical set of data sets that still are real data, but they might be cleaned up in a way that it's useful for teaching. I hope that answers the question. Is there another question? I see one here that says, can anybody hear me? Sorry.
So we can hear you.
Yes, I see another one that says about a cost. There is no cost. You can use the Harvard Dataverses for free if an institution chooses to install the Dataverse software for the internal usage. The software is open source and free. We're looking into, as we go into this new phase of maybe supporting data sets that one single data set might be terabytes or petabytes of data, how they would need to be supported or funded by that project so that the data storage and preservation of that large data set can be at least partially covered by the research project. But since we're not supporting right now, the data set, one single data set is not a petabytes, right? So we don't have that problem. No. So,
I think there's another question asking is if either the core or domain metadata exposed as linked open data?
Yeah, it's a very good question. We do need to do that. We work with very close collaborators that make a very good point that this is important. We haven't got to that, but it's something that we'll do. And thanks for the reminder, because I know that this is gonna add it as of now into our list of things. Yes. You answer the next questions? So I see another question on the backup system for Dataverse. So there are two levels of backup. So here the Harvard Dataverse installation, we have copies, an online backup copy that is in a different location, but it's still online access. And then there are backups that go into storage and can be recovered, tape backups that can be recovered if the two backups, online backups, fail. We also work in collaboration with some archives in a collaboration called DataTags, where we duplicate some parts of the data into different locations, into several different locations using logs. So Dataverse is integrated with the log system that lots of copies keep stuff safe, so that if you set up a Dataverse instance, you can use logs to duplicate the data into different locations. I hope that answers the question. I see also if there are any UK installations. I know that we work with some groups that were testing an installation of Dataverse. Just yesterday, I was talking to the Oxford University CIO, and they're considering testing it, evaluating, and installing it there. I don't know enough about the installations in the States again.
Mercy, I have a question about what are the percentage of the different disciplines, social science, usually there are other discipline science. What are the percentage for each of the areas? And is Dataverse especially good for social science or certain areas of science? For example, like geospatial data, is it also good for geospatial data?
Right. No, good question. Well, many people associate Dataverse with social science data for a good reason, because for one thing, here our data science group is in the Institute for Quantitative Social Science, right? And that's how we started. The focus years ago when we started was on metadata and providing more features for quantitative data sets, tabular data sets that are mostly that are common in quantitative social science, like again SPSS or an ARPAL or Stata or some other have rich metadata. There are tabular data sets, and that you would apply a statistical model. But having said that, in the last couple of years, we started a collaboration with the astronomy group here, the Center for Astrophysics at Harvard Smithsonian, and started to provide additional support for astronomy data in this format. We started this last year collaboration with people in the medical school to support biomedical data. So even though the current archive or the current amount of data sets, there might be the majority still in social science, in particular with the 4.0 release, the support for files in all other disciplines has been very extended with this additional metadata support, and there are groups that we're working with again, the School of Public Health, the medical school, with the School of Design and Architecture here, with history, with that are already using Dataverse, and we're planning to use it more with the new metadata and the new features that are coming. For geospatial data in particular, the new thing that we're working on that we should have in September, the first iteration or the first release is this integration with World Map for geospatial files that you would upload to Dataverse and you would be able to visualize it.
That's good. Thank you, Mercy.
Thank you. I know that there is a lot of information, so I hope the slides will be available, and feel free to ask any questions in the future to me or to the team.
Susanna, you have do you have other questions? You have any other questions?
Yes, I was wondering how you publicize and market Dataverse within your community or to the broader public.
How we do the, sorry.
So how you're publicizing or marketing Dataverse, either within your community or to the broader public?
That's, I mean, it's a good question. I don't know if publicizing is exactly what we've been doing. I'm invited to give many talks everywhere, so that's one way to talk about it in different research communities, in workshops and conferences. Like in a couple of weeks, I'll be in Toronto for the ISCs, but and some other people in my team also are going to different conferences that we talk about how connecting publishers to data repositories, or next week we're having the first Dryad Dataverse community workshop here at Harvard, and it was full right away. After we announced it got full very quickly. So it's basically being part of these different, having some place in the different research communities and library communities, I work, I would say, with 3 or 4 different stakeholders. Some are the publishers, then the libraries, and the researchers mostly, and to some extent the funding agencies too. Internally here, Harvard, sometimes it's just not easy to make researchers understand the importance of we try to give incentive through data citation and promote how well they're giving them credit and recognition for depositing the data through citation. Not everybody is yet on board on data sharing, but the mandates from funding agencies and the requirements from journals are, in a way, are making it very real that a repository like Dataverse is important, and that there has to be some effort from the moment that you start the research to manage and maintain or document your data so that it can be shareable once the research project is completed. I hope that answers the question, and I don't know if there are any other questions. It's been a lot of fun for me.
Thank you so much, Mercy, for the presentation, and we are all very excited to see all the new features of the new version of Dataverse.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Susanna, you want to see something to close the webinar by talking about the webinar series?
Yes, I just wanted to let everyone know, especially members of the DSIC group, that at ALA Annual, our event will be Data Curation Using Tape, Improving Crowdsourced Data from the New York Public Library's Menu Transcription Project. And we will have presenters Trevor Munoz from the University of Maryland and MLIS candidate Lydia Vaganzeva to talk about a crowdsourced effort that they had to transcribe the short menus from the library collection. And that's on Sunday, June 29th at ALA Annual from 1 to 2:30. So watch for announcements on that specific upcoming program. And thank you so much to Minglu and the ACRL Numeric and Geospatial Data Services for sponsoring this event with the Data Curation Group.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susanna. Thank you, Mercy.
Thank
you, everyone, for attending our webinar. Have a good afternoon. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you, Alison.